Hey all, it's Gorilla Gordon here, and I just want to let you all know that I'm still up and running. Unfortunately, I had an incident with my main system where I plan to get some more stuff updated, but my main system, either motherboard or power supply, just went kaput, and life sucks, and I got a little delay. But I wanted to get this out to you because it was important for me to let you know this channel is going to be up and coming. But I'm going to create this new section because something I noticed which no reviewer has talked about. And I think this is important for people to examine this because if I'm the only one who's observed it, I think other people may have observed this too, but no one has quite put it together. But anyway, we'll get into that in just a moment. First thing I want to say is I've been playing this game, which I've been waiting for a while, called No Man's Sky, made by Hello Games and sponsored by Sony, otherwise known as Sony Online. That's important. Remember that. So, uh, basically, I bought into it with 1 billion planets. You could travel, you could upgrade your ship, you can see different worlds, and I have to admit, on a visual level, I've only traveled to 6 planets. Visually, I'm absolutely impressed. And let me tell you some of the pros. I went to my first planet where I was stuck on, where it was always cold, and I was always fighting that, so it kind of gave a little realism. I examined all the creatures. I had to go hunting for the last creature for hours to find it. And it was only one creature. Uh, so it kind of gave a little realism as that, but I got a huge payday for it. Uh, but I also, while I'm doing this, I'm gathering materials, I'm going back to my ship, I'm putting my ship together, and then when you finally get your ship to fly, then you got atmospheric flight, and then you can start going to the waypoints, and you start putting more things together, and you're just cool. This is going good. I'm feeling good here. And then you start upgrading your tool to become a better weapon, a better mining tool. It just you're feeling very positive. Uh, and then comes the moment of discovery when you have pulse drive and you can go to another planet pretty quickly. So it's wow. So I go to another planet and I land on that planet and it's toxic rain everywhere and I'm dying left and right and I've scanned 4 animals but I got to get out of there. So I go into a tunnel and the tunnel has no toxic rain and interesting enough the river lake inside doesn't is not toxic. It's just water. So I swim around there, find nothing. Um, and then eventually I come out and I get back on my ship and I leave that planet. I go to another planet. And there's no animals on this planet, but there's tons of resources and tons of things I could do on this planet, including finding crashed ships. Which eventually I replaced my ships around and I got a cool looking ship. So it's kind of sad. I sacrificed practical for cool looking because I got to admit some of the ships I've seen so far are pretty ugly, but I finally got a cool looking one. So, but here's the thing. Eventually, you get your hyperdrive. And then the real moment discovery comes is that now you can go somewhere completely different. Now, before I did, I went to one last planet in the system, and I was blown away with what I saw. I saw animals that were actually plants. And I said, and I couldn't believe this because I saw a dancing pineapple would go back forward. There were different sizes and everything, but all the creatures, except for the birds, all the creatures were plants. And that was so amazing to me. It's watching them. They would hop around like plants. They would walk around like plants. And they were all very friendly. You could talk to them. And that was wonderful. And but then I was struggling with the language until I figured out you give carbon to this one of the aliens you meet, he'll teach you languages. So I did that, and it took me over 400 times to get the entire language of the Corvax down. Um, and then it says, so I'm figuring I got the language, I've seen all the creatures, I've found them all. Time to go on to the next galaxy. Now they highlight the path to go to the next galaxy. I'm like, screw that. I don't want to do that. I want to go see something else. Because I don't want to rush to the end. Because there's a bunch of people out there rushing to the end, and that's not the point of this game. The point of this game was exploration. So I go out to this other planet, and once again, I see all these different creatures and landscape. But then we're running into a very similar theme. You have to get more mining materials to upgrade your ship to get better things, and blah 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 blah, and then find the animals. Go to another planet. There are no creatures on the planet, but tons of mining. But then with my travels, I also discovered there's this antenna which you use a bypass chip to get 4 different missions. One is transmission. The other is shelter. Then there's colonial structure and monolith. Each one has some benefits, whereas the colonial structure I see provides technology or crash ship location. Transmission usually gets you to an advanced site and a landing spot. Shelter is just usually someone's house. And monolith is a place where you can usually learn the language. Sometimes you get a bonus monolith where you learn from the Atlas language. So, but this is the same here. But here's where I got irritated. I met another race called Gex race. And I could see by the way it was written in the script line, it was the exact same script except it was a new language. And I was not going to spend there and learn 400 words to learn the entire language. I should say 400 plus. I wasn't going to do that. But then I noticed something there. While I was flying waypoint to waypoint, trying to upgrade my stuff and get better or something, I noticed something very peculiar. With all the beauty and the generation, I started noticing things. And the one thing I noticed is the land at the waypoints for everyone, whether it be shelter, whether it be the colonial structures or monolith, was geographically different than the rest of the land around it. In fact, it was dead flat. And I thought to myself, what game would change the entire geography to suit an item at a random waypoint? And I thought about it long and hard, and I dug into my past, and I remembered what game did that. Others too, but I'm going to do one from my experience. Look familiar? This is Star Wars Galaxies. And believe it or not, this is still factory sealed. Oops, nasty glare there. This is still factory sealed. And I wonder how much it's worth, actually. I mean, it's useless. It's not working. But you get the code here to get your character in the back. But here's the thing. I got this a long time ago, and there were these terminal missions, Imperial or Rebel, that if you manipulated and get 20 spots filled up on your roster, you would get an actual base where you would blow up, or blow up the flag to blow up the base. But what it would do is it would place the base and flatten all the land around it. Some cases it would raise the land, some cases it would sink the land, but it would be flat perfectly at this one waypoint you would go to. And I thought, wow, I remember that. But then I thought, wait a minute, Sony. And then I thought deeper. And I actually did 3 other videos before I did this video. And I realized more after I started digging in. And I watched the creatures walk around. And then I watched old videos of Star Wars Galaxies and watched those creatures walk around. And what we did and what we interacted with them and everything. I realized there's now a reason why Sony became partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but to be honest, Sony partnered with with Hello Games to make this game. So there was no way Sony was going to allow them to delay their game because they wanted to compete directly, I'm sure, with World of Warcraft's Legion and other games that are coming out here, but they wanted to compete with it. Here's the thing, though. I started thinking about Star Wars Galaxies, and then I started thinking about the sequel, Jump to Lightspeed, and I looked at some of the screenshots online, about the when you take the view of the cockpit, the exact same thing that's in No Man's Sky, and eerily enough, it's almost the same. Other than doesn't have your PlayStation name on the side or anything like that, but the technology wasn't there. But the concept of the battle, and in the old Star Wars Galaxy, when you flew in space to get to the land, you had to talk to a space station to allow you to land. Nowadays, with No Man's Sky, you would just fly to the planet. And I remember the first moment I picked up this game thinking, this is what Star Wars Galaxies flying should have been. But then I started going around the atmosphere more, looking at the creatures, looking at how it's built. And I'm starting to realize that a lot of the gaps, including some of the heavier mechanical stuff, um, seem to come or stem from Star Wars Galaxies. Or that now, you don't have to take my opinion. You might think I'm crazy, but specifically with the geography, if in Star Wars Galaxies it had player housing, if you built a house on a cliff or something, there was a invisible flat layer that it would only allow you to build houses in certain locations. If you built it on a cliff and it allowed you, it would change the geography of the land to match the house. The same way it would change the geography in No Man's Sky. If you don't believe me, flying your ship over No Man's Sky over waypoints such as stations, boss, and you're going to notice they're all flat. It's the same technology, folks. It's the same technology that they built into the creatures. Everything's the same. So you have to ask yourself, what happened? And I know what happened. Hello Games had something that Sony didn't have, and that was atmospheric travel. They perfected it. They were able to make a round shape and smooth out to a flat shape. Sony didn't have that. Now they do. So, on a conspiracy note, my hunch is Sony's planning something which implements everything. Even the grass moves the same way as Star Wars Galaxy. Look at the videos. Compare the two. Now, granted, No Man's Sky's graphics are way better because you're dealing with an 8, 9-year-old game versus a relatively new game. But the concept, the programming is all the same. The flat land, the behavior of the animals, everything is the same. Take a look. As I said, this might be a conspiracy theory, but if you do the research, look at the screenshots, look at the video, and then compare the thing, I firmly believe there is a connection between the old Star Wars Galaxies programming and the new No Man's Sky, and I really think they regurgitated some of the old technology and got top dollar for it. And I haven't heard one reviewer say this. So take a look at the screenshots. Take a look at everything. Take a look at the TIE Fighter cockpit and the other ones where those cockpit is round. Or the X-Wing cockpit. And then look at the other ones that look like an X-Wing. It's the same thing. Look how the creatures walk around. You know, you're not getting leather from the creatures or anything like that. But when you shoot them, you get usually carbon or iron or something. That it's really strange. And I think in a way we've been kind of duped because this technology is over 10 years old. And they just used it and rehashed it. And the only thing really new was the terraforming of the land from a round ball into boom. Anyway, this is Gorilla Gordon. I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but just take some time, think about it, perhaps look at some screenshots, and if you played No Man's Sky and you played Star Wars Galaxies, you might see where I'm coming from. But on a side note, with regards to this, I'm going to do a video one day on this because there's a lot of people in YouTube, which I'm going to say nameless, that claim they know or what happened to Star Wars Galaxy. Believe me, it's a long story to tell. It's over probably 2 hours. But here's the thing. With this game, I was there in pre-CU on that, and I was there up until the end. And I can tell you what happened. But that's another time. Anyways, Gorilla Gordon. Talk to y'all later.